and the way the virus attacked our bodies, the more worried I became. There were few treatments, no vaccines, and hospitals were becoming rapidly overwhelmed. But just 9 months later, the first vaccines were approved, giving the world the potential to return to normal. I'm outside a vaccination centre just walking distance from my office in the small town of Letchworth, 40 kilometres or so north of London. It's one of hundreds of vaccination centres across the UK, located everywhere from health clinics and churches to theatres and sports halls. This one used to be a shop, and we're not that far from a load of roadworks that you can probably hear in the background. COVID-19 vaccines are a triumph of scientific process and innovation and have already saved hundreds of thousands of lives, but not everyone sees them that way. In the United States, for instance, where vaccines are freely available, opinion polls suggest around 1 in 4 adults are either hesitant or will outright refuse to get the injection. And over the next 4 weeks, in the public misunderstanding of science, I'll be trying to find out why some people have given up on science and what scientists and journalists like me can do about it. We'll examine conspiracy theories and hear from the next generation of scientific experts.
I know a lot of weird facts, like astronaut comes from the Greek word, I think it is, star and sailor, making astronaut. So that's kind of cool.
We'll also be investigating how science doesn't always provide clear-cut answers and why it's sometimes right to be sceptical about new technology.
We need to stop imagining that there's some bright technological future where we enter into a digital utopia and humans are replaced by machines and nobody has to do anything anymore. It's not realistic at all.
In this first programme, we'll examine the best ways to communicate public health messages when the bottom line is saving lives. Fortunately for most of us, COVID-19 will be the only pandemic we face in our lifetime. But in Sierra Leone in 2014, as well as the ongoing AIDS pandemic, there was an outbreak of another deadly and highly infectious virus, Ebola.
The government in Sierra Leone is preparing to impose a 3-day nationwide lockdown later this month to try to halt the spread of the Ebola virus.
So when it comes to dealing with COVID-19, what can we learn from how the small West African nation responded to Ebola? Umaro Fofana is a journalist who reports for the BBC from Sierra Leone. Umaro, thanks for helping me tell this story. You've seen firsthand, haven't you, the devastating effects of the disease. So perhaps you could begin by explaining what it is and what it does.
Ebola is a viral hemorrhagic fever which came to Sierra Leone through neighboring Guinea and Liberia. Before then, we had no idea of what this disease was. And then when it came, clearly, this part of the world, which even in the best of times struggles with its healthcare delivery system, was caught off guard. Little knowledge about the outbreak, infrastructure almost non-existent, and it caused a huge devastation in its wake. Of the 30,000 confirmed cases or thereabouts, it killed more than 11,000 people in these 3 countries of Guinea, Liberia and Sierra Leone. And Sierra Leone alone lost almost 4,000 people. And you can imagine the devastating consequence it had, in the sense that we had Ebola orphans, Ebola widows and Ebola survivors. 3 categories who up to this day are struggling to find their feet again.
So what impact did that disease have on people personally and physically?
Such is how dangerous it is that even the corpse of an Ebola victim becomes far more infectious than a patient. So as a result, we had little idea about how to respond to it, and that made the whole thing really absolutely devastating. Add to that ignorance. There were areas in Sierra Leone, for example, in the south, in the southern district of Bo, where an Islamic scholar who died of Ebola, his followers washed his dead body and drank the water. Such was how learned he was that they thought that if they washed the body and drank the water, they would become really very much learned. You can imagine the consequence of that. Ignorance, poor infrastructure, poverty, that's a toxic mix, and it's really wreaked havoc on this country.
That sounds awful. And also there's obviously a stigma as well that's often related to people who've either had the disease or know someone who's had the disease or is related to someone with the disease. And although it's almost 20 years now since the civil war in Sierra Leone, it still remains a divided nation. And when Ebola broke out in 2014, not everyone wanted to trust a government-backed public health campaign either. Why was that?
Well, there is so much suspicion, some say even so much paranoia here, that everything is looked at from the lenses of politics. Now, the outbreak began in the eastern district of Calhoun, which is the stronghold of the party that was in opposition at the time. So the supporters of the party then, the